Yo, what's up? Welcome to another video. In this video I'm going to be showing you how to draft the dress that you've seen on the thumbnail. Now before we begin, I'm currently running a 30% discount on my long-term course. If you're interested, please send a message to me on Telegram on the number that you can see on the screen. I'll be giving you guys a demo on how to cut and sew a jumpsuit so that you can watch and decide if it would be convenient for you to learn online. So if you're interested, like I said before, please contact me on Telegram on the number that you can see on the screen. So let's begin. Alright, so now this is the pattern that we're working with. I'm sure I've already shown you the measurements before we begun. So the first thing I'm going to do is, now because this doesn't have a shoulder, I'm going to simply just cut off the top part. So how am I going to do that? First of all, I'm going to keep my tape at 5 inches away from the top. So you see that 5 inches away from the top. The next thing I'm going to do is, when I keep my tape at 5 inches, I'm going to place all my vertical measurements. So those are the measurements from my shoulder going down. So in this case, I'm going to place my underbust length at 14. From there, if I count 4 inches up, I will find my bust line. So that's where my bust line is going to fall. I'm going to place my the half cut at 3 inches after the underbust length, because if you take a look at the picture, you can see that before the flay, it goes down a bit before the thing flays out to make to have the fullness at the bottom. So that's why I'm keeping 3 inches there. The next thing I'm going to mark is the dress length. So this is a pretty short dress, so I'm going to make a mark at around 31 inches. You can make it shorter because you are supposed to put this on with a dress shirt underneath anyway. So this is just supposed to be a dress that is worn on top of something else. Only if you are trying to feel yourself, then you can wear it the way it is. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to rule lines across all these points, horizontal lines across these points. So as you can see, I've labeled the bit bust, under bust length, half length, and this is the dress length. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to place all our measurements across. Alright? The bust divided by 4, 34 divided by 4 is 8.5. Under bust length is 28, 28 divided by 4 is 7. I'm going to place the same thing down here. Alright, the next thing we're going to place is the hip. Now I know that we didn't place a hip measurement, even though this is not going to be fitted on the hip, it's going to flare out a bit. So you're going to divide the hip by 4 as well. The hip I'm dealing with is 40, 40 divided by 4 is 10. I'm going to place that down here. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to connect all the lines together. And the next thing we're going to do, you're going to place your bust point to bust point. So nipple to nipple divided by 4 plus half an inch, and nipple divided by 2 plus half an inch. So the nipple I'm dealing with is 7. 7 divided by 2 is 3.5 plus half an inch is 4 inches. That's why I said 4. So I'm going to place 4 inches from the top all the way down. Alright, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to need to taper this down. Now, if you take a look at the design, you will see that at the top part, before we continue, at the top part here of the bust, you can see that it starts from up here, then it slopes down towards the armhole. So it's a curve. The top line of the bustier is a curve. So we're going to need to do that now. Alright, how we're going to achieve that is we're going to come over to the bust line. So you see this line here, the bust line. We're going to come up by 1 inch. Sorry, we're going to come up here by 1 inch. We're going to add half inch at the top for allowance, but from here come up by 1 inch. All right. And then you're going to make a curve from the top here to here. Now, if you see what I'm doing, when I was ruling the line from here going down, I kept half inch on top of that's because we're going to need to keep half inch all over here for your sewing allowance at the top. Alright. Next thing I'm going to do is we're going to start cutting out the bustier, turning this into a bustier. How we're going to do that is at the top here, we're going to make a mark. We're going to make a mark at ½ inch into this side here. So into the front, we're going to mark ½ inch in front of here, and into the back here, we're going to make a mark at 1 inch. We're trying to create the bustier now. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to come under here. We're going to come here, and I'm going to come in by 1½ inch. Alright, now if you notice, for those of you that know how I drive my bustier, normally I come up by ½ inch to create a lift. I'm not going to do that here. Alright, then this 1.5, you're going to place it all the way to the end of your pattern. We're going to repay back all of this, so don't be worried. Now in here I used 1.5 for the space that I have here. Now that's because of the bust size that I'm working with. If you want to know all the numbers and the values, see my video on how to draft the bustier. Link is going to be in the description. That's going to give you the values that you should use depending on the bust size that you are working with. Alright, so here I'm using 1.5 because of the bust I'm working with. So make sure to see that video if you don't know the number that you should use down there, or if you've not seen it before. Alright, so connected this line to the bust line. I'm going to connect this other line as well. Then I'm going to connect here to here. So now we've made the basic cut. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to need to pay back this allowance that we've taken out. So here that we've taken out 1.5, we're going to need to add 1.5 back. Alright, now this is 1.5. We're going to need to add 1.5 here as well. Add 1.5 here because of here we took out 1.5. If you took out more than 1.5 because of the bust size you're working with, whatever number you took out, make sure to pay it back here. Now, after you've paid back this allowance that we have here, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to place your regular allowance on the side. Now, for this allowance, I'm going to place 2 inches. Normally, I would have placed only 1 inch for my sewing allowance, but I'm placing 2 inches because the first 1 inch in that 2 inches is going to pay for joining here to here. Alright, add your 2-inch allowance on the side. Alright, so now I'm going to cut this out. When I'm cutting it out, I'm going to add ½ inch of allowance at the top part here, and at the bottom here, this 2 inches that we have here is going to be our allowance that our lining is supposed to pull inside. Alright, so make sure to fold it before you cut. So after cutting the front and the side, next thing I'm going to do is we're going to have to add our excess. So now it's time to create the fillet. Now if you've seen the middle of the front, we don't have any fullness there, so there's no excess there. So this is the front here, okay? This is the front of this of the center piece. So we're not going to tamper with it, we're not going to add any fullness there. We're going to only do that to the side here. And if you see the picture, the fullness that we have on the dress is not so much, so you're not going to go ahead to add in something like 10 or 20, but if you want to, at this point you can decide how much excess you want to have. But if you're following the thumbnail, the excess that they have there is not so much. So because it's not excessive, what we're going to do is we're going to add an allowance of only 4 inches. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead, going to mark 4 inches at the end. You can see I'm marking the 4 inches at the line at the bottom, not at the top. Next thing I'm going to do, let me show you how to cut this out. First thing we're going to do, we're going to cut the allowance at the bottom first. Right, so you can see I've added the excess to this pattern, that's the center of the front. I'm going to do the same thing I just did now on this side here. So I'm going to add 4 inches in front of here. I'm going to add an extra 4 inches to the side here as well. Alright, so by the time I'm done doing this, I'm going to come back to show you how the whole thing looks. Alright, so you can see the 4 inches I showed you here, and the 4 inches I've gone ahead to add to the back, to the side. If we bring them together, we place them how they're meant to look by the time we join everything, you will see that look at what's happening here. You see that here it's lifting up already, so there's already fullness in the front. The back is not like the front, so in the front you can see that it starts from the center and then it runs all the way down. When it gets to the armhole, it's it tapers down to the armhole. So as for the back is going to, the highest point of the back and the level that the back will be at throughout will be at the same level with whatever we had at the armhole by the time we're done sloping the front. So with that, we're going to simply place, this is the front pattern, place it as close to the top so you can see this allowance that we have here, and we're going to rule 2 lines. The first line is going to be for our ½ inch of allowance, and then we're going to mark where our bust line was. Alright, so that tells, with this we have marked out the exact height of the back pattern. Alright, so I will draft everything starting from there. So I'm going to simply rule my lines across the points. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to keep my zipper allowance from here all the way down. For my zipper allowance, I'm going to keep only 1 inch. So just to speed everything up, simply place the front on the back. We have the allowance and we have the bust. So we're going to mark the under bust line, mark where we placed our half length, and then we're going to mark where we have the dress length. Alright, that's before the allowance at the bottom. Now we can simply rule lines across these points. So here I have the pattern. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place the same 4, so that's the bust point to bust point divided by 2 plus half. I'm going to place it everywhere like I did before, here all the way up. Alright, so now the next thing is to start taking away to start creating the darts. So this is this is very simple. What I'm going to do, I'm going to place ½ inch, the middle of half of 1 inch, but that's ½ inch on this line, and I'm going to mark the beginning, mark the end, and I'm going to connect from the center of the top. I'm going to connect it from here to here, and then taper it out before I get to the end of the line here. So watch and see. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the front of the zipper. I want to taper down the back some more, so I'm going to come to the front of the zipper here, and I'm going to take away ½ inch from here as well. Alright, but when you are installing the zipper, you are still going to sew 1 inch everywhere. Alright, so when you are fixing your zipper, you are going to fix it at 1 inch. Alright, from here you sew 1 inch. Even when you get to here, you still sew 1 inch, because that is when these darts will now make sense, and then taper all the way down. So that will not change because of anything. Next thing I'm going to do, I need to pay back some of my allowance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place 2 inches of allowance everywhere, but at the end of the day I'm going to end up sewing only 1 inch. Why is that? 1 inch in that is to pay for joining the left to the right after we cut it out, and 1 inch is the allowance that's going to sit on the inside. Alright, so I'm going to cut this out. Alright, make sure that everything is in place. So now, as for on the back, we're basically done. The only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place a piece of paper, and I'll add 4 inches in front of it here and behind it here, and I'm going to do the same thing on this side, 4 inches in front of here and behind it here, just like I did in the front. By the time you do this, everything is going to come out lovely, nice. Now in the center of the back is not like the center of the front that we need to be smooth. at the back here, we need to have that that fullness, because if you look at the design, the center of the front didn't have a cut, so we can't add any fullness to the center of the front. But the center of the back, where we have the zipper, you can go ahead and after here add your 4 inches to the left, 4 inches to the right, 4 inches to the left, 4 inches to the right, and everything should be fine. If you've watched this far, thank you so much for watching the video. Make sure that if you're interested in my long-term course, send me a message on Telegram. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Have a lovely day. Bye bye.